Welcome back to the Marianne Hickman Show. Listen, this episode is really special. Now, I really try very, very hard to bring on just incredible people. I am more strict than ever on inviting people to my show. And when I got a hold of Jeff to see if, hey, can we do a podcast together? I honestly, and when you listen to this episode, you're going to hear me do it, but I was fangirling so hard. I asked Jeff to come on the show because I was introduced to his book launch. I always carry it right with me. Just ask my husband. It's always right next to me. And the reason I got his book and the reason I fell so much in love with what's in it is because I was talking to my friend Angie, and I've done a podcast episode with her too. You'll love her. She's incredible. But I said, Angie, how do you always sell out your excursions, your overseas expeditions to Morocco and Italy and all these places? You sell out the day you open. How do you do that? And she said, you have to get this book. So I picked it up. I got the audio version. I was listening to it in the sauna. I was like, I have to have the written version as well. You can see my version. It's all kinds of marked up here. I'm holding it up to the camera. For those of you on audio, it's got like bookmarks. It's got highlighted sections. It's got tabs and sticky notes in it. And so when I ran into Jeff on Threads, I said, I need to share this book on my podcast with you as my guest. If you've been watching the show, or if you know me and we know each other personally, you know I've probably recommended this book to you. Because here's the thing. Since you're a speaker, since you're on stage, I know that your message is the core of your offer. And a lot of times when it comes to the sales part or the call to action, we get this weird hiccup energy because then we feel like we have to shift into this salesperson role. And the truth is, if that's the feeling, then we're doing it wrong. Listen, I've been in sales for over 10 years and I ran a sales floor of a multi-million-dollar real estate company. And I have to tell you, I know how to do sales wrong. And it's the pushy, and it's the, hey, how much is on your credit card balance? Jeff and I talk a little bit about this, but if you want to sell successfully, and there's nothing wrong with sales, it's not a bad word, but if you want to sell successfully in a way that doesn't feel like selling either for you or the people enrolling in your product, then this is the system I recommend. It follows right with our 11 steps of mastering your keynote presentation as a business. And if you're really looking to make money using the 11 steps, then this is going to be a critical piece of your business. You can get the book in the links below. And of course, listen, I got to give you a little Easter egg. And Jeff talked about something on the show that he never talked about before. So I'll have to have you listen to that. But as soon as we were done, Jeff and I were chatting and he's like, we need to do a part 2. So watch and subscribe if you haven't already to our podcast, because I'm going to have Jeff on again in just a few months. And I don't want you to miss it. If you're in business for yourself, listen, if you're listening to this podcast, I know this about you. You're speaking on stages. You have courses. You have things that you want to build. You have a passion that you're so desperate to get out to the public because you know what it did for you. It changed your life. It maybe even saved your life. And I don't want you to make the mistake of killing your passion because you're not getting paid enough to do it. And today's episode is going to solve that, or at least be the next step in solving that for you. I want you to make money doing what you love. This is the formula to do it. Check it out. Jeff, I was floored when I saw you respond to me on Threads. I was like, I cannot believe Jeff is actually on Threads and he's responding to me. I have to admit, I fangirled for a little bit.
That's awesome to hear. I love it.
Well, and I have to tell you how we met. I'm not sure if I mentioned this in our chat or not. I had another guest on my show, and her name is Angie Monson. So Angie, thank you, first of all, for introducing me to Jeff's book. And I went to Angie and I was like, Angie, every time you post a retreat, you're going to Morocco, you're going overseas, you're doing all these things. You sell out the day up. How on earth are you doing this? And she said, you have to read this book. You have to, it's called Launch, go and get it. And I was like, fine. So I went and got this book on Audible. And I don't know if you do this the same thing. I listened to everything in the sauna while I'm at the gym. And I was like, there's so much stuff in this book. I can't take notes fast enough. I'm in like listening to it isn't enough. So I went and bought the hard copy as well. And I'm holding it up on camera for those of you that are listening. This thing is all kind of marked up with tabs and underlines and notes and everything in here. And when I saw Jeff on Threads, I was like, oh, I love Threads because you can't pre-schedule stuff. So this is probably actually Jeff. This is so cool. And when I reached out, Jeff responded and generously agreed to be on the show. So Jeff, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. It's good to be here. I love seeing that book all marked up. like when we were chatting just before we hit record, that book took 2 years of like serious effort to write. And so I love when I hear it's getting results for people.
Well, I don't even know if it's fair to say 2 years because you've got decades of experience into this thing.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Yeah, that's true.
it's actually decades of proof of concept and of working and of testing things. And I see, I mean, I've subscribed to every email list you have and experimenting with things. And even now you're still testing, openers and lines and all of these things. And honestly, and I think you talk about it in your book as well, when we get into entrepreneurship, we don't always think that, oh, now I've got to become a marketer. And when we get slapped with that, it's painful.
Yeah. Well, the thing, like, there are so many people, especially in my world, the people I tend to attract, they are people that are not like, I'm in it for the marketing. I love marketing. I'm a marketing geek. I just want to sell stuff. I don't care what it is. Those aren't my people. Nothing against them because I've got a lot of friends who are great marketers, but um, a lot of people are like, wow, I just want to get my work out there. I've put a lifetime into learning how to coach people on their health or on their tennis serve or on having a meditation practice or whatever. And I just want to do my work and I don't want to market. And I agree with, well, I was there. I was that person. Marketing and sales was like on the whole continuum of what you thought you had an aptitude for. I had zero aptitude for it in my mind, but it turns out I'm good at being passionate about stuff and I'm good about sharing my passion. And I think there's a lot of people out there, and what I've figured out in terms of launches and in terms of promotions and then eventually codified and now teach and coach on is just a way to enthusiastically share your message and build real value for people and then end up getting a great result. Because at the end of the day, for people out there, if you're listening and you want to help people and you just want to get your work out there and you've put all this time into getting great at it, you owe the world uh, a debt. I mean, that it's to get that work out there and to get it heard, you have to be effective at marketing and eventually sales. And the reality is in your marketing, you are just telling the story of your future clients' future success. So you have these people and they're out in the world and they're prospects, we call them in marketing speak. And those are people that, may have heard of you. They've entered into your universe in some way. And they have a future that is better than their present. But it's only better if they end up buying from you, if they end up enrolling with you and getting your program, your coaching, your teaching, your training, whatever it is. The only way their life is better is if they actually engaged with you, not just with your free content, but actually pay you so they can go deep, so that they are invested, so they can get there can be a difference made in their lives. And so you have to tell them that story of their future success and why you are the person that can get them that future success. And when you make that shift, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm just going to
No,
rant
no,
for
no, keep
2 more
going, keep
seconds.
going.
When you make that shift and you go from I'm trying to market to this person, I'm trying to sell to them, to I'm actually serving them by showing them there is this opportunity for the life to be better, and the way to get there is to engage with me. Then it becomes, when it shifts to you're serving them, then I think that changes a lot, and it makes it a lot more palatable, I think, to people in their marketing and sales.
Hey, what's up? Marianne Hickman here. Listen, I'm interrupting my own show because I want to give you something. Now, you guys all want to get on more stages. I've got a free resource for you of stages that are just clamoring for guests. They need guests on a daily, weekly, sometimes monthly basis. This is my podcast database. Now, what I'm going to do is have you go to mariannehickman.com/database. Once you put in your information there, I'm going to send this to you totally for free. Open up this database. You're going to click through it, find the next podcast that's relevant to your topic, hit the application button, show up on their podcast, get in front of their people, and share your content. Remember, mariannehickman.com/database. Let's get you unlocked.
Well, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to acknowledge every chapter in this book is a case study, which is the fancy way, the marketing way of saying, look at what Trina did. Look at what this yarn business did. Look at what this family who just lost their son. Look what happened to them when they did this. And it's so compelling because not only do you offer the case studies, but you're like, go read their story. It's on the website. Go see what they're up to. And you have had this, I don't know how you've done it. You've taken this hyperbole of speak, and there's a lot of smart people out there who say, yes, deliver real value. But if you say a word often enough, it kind of loses its meaning, and we all know that we're supposed to do this, but it's not practiced. And you are the first person with the highest level of potency who practices what you preach. When I read your book and I went through these case studies for the first time, I thought, holy crap, maybe I can do that too. If it worked for a yarn business, if it worked for this family, if it worked for them. So my question is this: I have a lot of members of my community, a lot of people who watch my stuff, and they have their experience. They've got their decades worth of XP in whatever arena that they're in, whether it's medical or whether it's holistic healing or whether it's marriage or family or whatever it is. And they don't have the testimonials yet. They don't have the I've served enough people to get this track record in yet. And when I watch you write your book, you practice what you preach, clearly. But if someone's just starting out, let's just say in your book you call it the seed launch. Maybe it's even before that. Before you can brag about other people and how far they've come because of your product, how do you bridge that with this gap of I don't have testimonials yet, but I have what I've done. How do you do that?
So there's a few different ways we can come at this. The first is to understand that no one has testimonials or case studies when they start out. So let's just acknowledge that, including me. No one does when they start. And the whole idea of a seed launch, that's often the first launch that it's a style of launch, and it's the style that we generally coach would be a great way for most people to start with. And the amazing thing about it is you can actually do the launch before you even have any product whatsoever, because the product is a series of coaching calls, group coaching calls. And so you just need to have to assemble a small audience, and then you deliver to them, and you deliver it in real time. So you actually get paid before you create the product. It's amazing. And it's completely ethical, because there's all kinds of things that get created before they're sold. For instance, college classes or plays or newspapers. It just, once you start to look around, you see it everywhere. And so one of the reasons you do that seed launch, it's a very compelling offer, because people love live coaching. And since you're doing it in a small group, it adds more robustness to it. And it's so much more powerful in so many ways. And the whole idea of the seed launch is you're making the product, but you're also finding your first success stories. And so that's so I spent my first 8 years in online business teaching about the stock market. That was my thing. And I did that for about 8 years. And then I had I had a partner in that business. My partner one day decided to steal the business from me. Long story. And I had to start over again. And by then I had all this marketing expertise, but I was starting over from scratch in a brand new market. And that's when I built up this business teaching people how to launch. And what I did was I went to a few conferences and I met some people. And remember, at this point, I had 8 years of learning how to launch. So I had this expertise. I just wasn't known. So at the back of the room in the conference, just getting to know people, I met a couple people and I ended up coaching them. And one of them, I didn't charge him anything for. He had amazing results. And another one, this woman, her business was writing love letters. And I'm like, I wonder if this launch stuff can work when it comes to selling a product about how to write love letters, literally an ebook on how to write love letters. And so I helped her with a launch. And I just said, hey, I just want to help you out because I like you, because I've got this expertise, but it's going to help me create another success story. How about if you just PayPal me $10? And now you've given me $10, so you're a paying client. And I helped her do a launch. It was the best. She had the best. That week of her launch was better than any month she'd ever had. It was an amazing launch. and tens of thousands of dollars for this ebook about how to write love letters. And so all of a sudden I had a case study. So I was just, often you get scrappy. Everyone who's just starting out, you get a little scrappy when you're starting out. And I mean, it's almost like, so Marianne, I know you're teaching how to go out and speak to the world, right? And
Right.
there's many, many different ways to do it. But like when you do your first gig or two, it's often scrappy. You might be speaking at the Chamber of Commerce or something like that. You get a little bit of scrappy and then you start to build onto that. And that's the way, in my experience, I've helped a lot of people get started in business. And usually there's a certain amount of scrappiness in the beginning. So I guess you can completely launch without any case studies or any testimonials, any success stories whatsoever. And I've had hundreds and hundreds of people do that successfully with zero proven results, so to speak. And so that's A. And then B, the way you generally get your first case studies or your first testimonials is by being a little scrappy, by getting your elbows dirty and working with people. And then I had those like two, and then I did my initial seed launch for my product launch formula. So I'm a product of all of my teaching and training is stuff that I first tested on myself. And I did my first seed launch and I got 6 people to buy from me. And Marianne, this I don't think is anywhere in my book, but that first seed launch was actually me selling from stage. I gave a presentation on how to do launches. And at the end of the presentation, I made an offer and I had 6 people buy, which is not a very good conversion because there's like 230 people in the room. So anyone out there who knows about making offers from stage, if you don't fall off the stage, you should sell 10% of the room. So I should have sold 23 and I sold 6. So we now established just what an expert salesperson I am. But I took those 6 people and I worked with them intensely and got like 4 case studies out of those 6 people. So there's always a little bit of scrappiness in the background when people are telling you their origin story and how this happened and this happened, and all of a sudden you're a wild success. There's always some scrappiness in the background that they're not telling you about. That's a little bit of my scrappiness.
Well, and I gotta dig into this because as I've perused through your book and I've read it and reread it and listened to it over and over again, for me there's this gap where you're in the stocks and you're really smart and brilliant with that. You're sending out something like 500 newsletters a year with stocks. It's like multiple times a day. That's crazy number of emails. And then you transition from stocks into what has become launch and launching and launching anything that you basically really want to.
Right.
I want to know about that gap. When did you know you had something?
So this was in March. So I had the business teaching about stocks from 1996 until March of 2015. And that's when on one Friday afternoon, I got that call from my partner and it said, "Hey, I've started a new business, a competing business, and I'm taking all of our clients over to that business." And so at that point, I literally had never in my life talked to a lawyer ever.
Oh,
And all of a sudden I'm talking to a lot of lawyers. He's suing me for the parts he wasn't able to steal. And so that was March 2015. And so at that point I had gone out to, I'd been to 3 or 4 marketing conferences as opposed to stock market conferences. I went to online marketing conferences and I made some friends. And I made some friends who were actually, there's that saying game recognized game. And
uh-huh.
so I was not in this teaching marketing space, but I'd gotten to know all the people who were teaching marketing because they clearly, when they heard the kind of results I was getting with my launches, they got real interested. And so I had helped some of them out, shared with some of them, and was hanging out with them. And then my business was stolen. And I was actually scheduled to speak at a conference, an online marketing conference. And it was Yannick Silver was put on this conference, and Yannick's like, "Wow, your business just sort of went away and with one phone call, and now you're in these lawsuits and getting sued, and maybe you should make an offer from stage instead of just speaking." And I'm like, "Huh, that sounds like a good idea." So
Generous. Oh,
yeah,
that never
so
happens.
Yannick Silver's like, I'm just going to say it's one of the most. He's not that well known now, but he was in the online marketing world. He was the king back in 2005. And incredibly generous person. Write that down. Yannick Silver, unbelievably generous. I wouldn't be sitting here talking about product launches if it wasn't for him and for another person, John Reese, who really said, you should turn this into a product because you've helped us turn this into a product and we want to promote it for you. And they had two of the most vibrant lists, two of the most powerful lists and followings. And I'm like, okay, well, I now have no money coming in. I've got, we've got two young kids. Yeah, okay, maybe if the two of you promote it, I know I'm going to make at least $50,000 because I know we'll do $100,000 in sales. I'll give you half of that, just because I knew they have powerful lists. So I'm like, okay, I'll do a product. And then it just turned out I had spent like 2 years going to marketing conferences and helping people just nonstop. This is great. We're talking about. I've never talked about this really.
I'm excited because it's so in parallel with what everyone. If you're listening to this, I have been saying to you over and over and over: get to conferences, go to events, get to know people.
Yeah, I would say it's unbelievable getting out to in-person events. I would not be here, absolutely would not be here speaking to you. No one would have ever heard of me. There would never have been a book. There would never have been, I've now sold over $100 million in this business, in this brand. My clients have done $1 billion. None of that would have happened if I hadn't gone out to these conferences. And the other thing is I'm an introvert. I am a full out introvert, but I could hang out at the back of the room and just talk marketing with, I met one person and he introduced me to another person and he introduced me to another person. I met someone who became really like a champion of mine. He was just introducing me to everyone. And then I was just hanging out at the bar, drinking Coronas with a few people. And then, so it went from March 2015, March 2005, having the business stolen, making a few sales in my seed launch late March, delivering that via a series of calls, like we talked about over the next 8 weeks, taking those calls and what I learned there and turning that into a product that then on October 21st, 2005, I rolled out the first version of Product Launch Formula. So this is now my signature program. I'm still selling it. It's almost 20 years later. It's obviously been redone and redone and redone and remade over and over. But October 21st, 2005, and I hope I'm not boring people with ancient history, but in the first 10 minutes in that business, I'd sold $35,000, and by the end of the 1 week launch, I made $600,000 in sales, just because all those people I'd helped for those 2 years became my partners, my JV partners, my affiliate partners. And within 6 months, I'd sold $1 million of that product. And then that was just the start. Since then the numbers have gotten truly crazy. Yeah, here we are.
Well, it's been incredible to watch. And I've become one of your raving fans. If you were ever to start a church, you'd have a missionary right here. I'd be door knocking and peddling your book everywhere. But I just got a text and I posted it on my Instagram story yesterday. I have to read this to you because it happens all the time. I tell everyone about your book if they're selling puppies, if they're part of my program, whatever it is. And I got this text from a friend of mine, and she said, also, I'm obsessed with the launch book. Thank you so much for the recommendation. So Jeff, I wanted to take a moment right now and just personally thank you for making something that is so not hyperbole crammed with value, but actually this is a textbook. This is implementable. This has made money for people that you don't even know. This because this is so unrestrained in the steps and in the formula and everything that you're doing. When I first read your book, I didn't even finish it before. I was like, I could do that. And I started to put together this really crappy launch that I'm one of those people that I get so excited. I'm like, I have to do this right now. And I didn't even finish the thing. I did the crappiest launch ever. And that launch is still making me $60 a month on recurring revenue, which, woohoo, I can go out to eat maybe once. But then I did it again after I read more of the book. We sold out an event. We made $15,000 on that launch. And the next one, I cannot wait to see what it does. I'm in the middle of building my next launch right now, but it's helping me accomplish my mission, which is to put people on 1 million stages and help them make $1 billion doing it.
And when people ask me all the time, they're like, how do I make money from stage? I'm like, okay, your speaker fee can be a thing. We were talking about this before we hit record. Your speaker fee, whoop-de-doo, it's still dollars for hours. You can get paid $15, $5, $10,000 to come speak, whoop-de-doo. But the real power in what you're building, in speaking, in your business, is taking your stage appearance and these eyeballs that you're in front of, finding the right people that are a good fit for you, give them something. And this is teeing up to my next question, if you will. Give them something that they can use in the next 10 minutes. Give them something really, really valuable. And then if they like more of that, keep giving them stuff and keep giving them stuff until they send you the email that says one day, how do I work more with you? How do I do more with you? And so, Jeff, I wanted to ask this. You've got this understanding that parallels the 7 Habit books from the Coveys and the How to Win Friends and Influence People book from the Carnegies, and all of this hypothesis, not even hypothesis, this way of being where you're actually taking good care of people and you're actually caring about them right now. You're taking care of your mom and dad, and just this, it's palpable, the way that you actually care about the person in front of you and not just through them so you can get to the person on the other side of them. Where does this come from? Where does this ability to translate, I'm not marketing, I'm actually showing up and I care about the person, the generosity, where did this come from?
I don't know.
I know it sounds like I'm buttering you up, but it's fascinating to me because
yeah.
you make it as marketable.
Yeah, clearly it was part of my upbringing, clearly. But I'll tell you what, when I first started in this business and I was desperate, I had 2 young children. I was a stay-at-home dad. We were a one-income family. My wife was supporting a family. We had very little money to go around. I was just desperate to make some money. This is all the way back almost 30 years ago now, when I first started that business about the stock market, and I was desperate, and there was. I'll try to make this very short. But I had a free newsletter about the stock market. And I was building this email list, but I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know marketing. And there was this other person who had he was like my direct competitor. He, like, if I had it was like Coke and Pepsi. It was like McDonald's and Burger King. It's like I had this free newsletter. He had a free newsletter, but he was ahead of me on the curve. He had a paid newsletter. He had a professional website. I had this homegrown, ugly thing. And one day, one thing I'd figured out how to do, and this is so silly, Marianne, but I had figured out how to take charts of the stock market and take an image, a still image, and put them on my website. This was like rocket science in 1996. It was really hard to do. But I had figured it out. I'd driven to Best Buy and found some software that I bought the CD of the software, loaded it up, figured out how to cut and paste. This was actually hard to do back then. And one day this is the one thing I felt like I had over this other person. His name was Frank Collar. Is that I had nice charts on my site and he didn't have any charts. Everything else he had going on, including a paid newsletter. And one day I got an email and it came from him. It was like, Frank, and this is like the person I've been stalking. This is like the person I just wanted to be. I just thought, like, I got to somehow be like him and beat him, because, there's only so many people in this world that are online and getting a newsletter about the stock market, right? And this is an email from him. I couldn't believe it. Email came from him, and I opened it up and it said, hey, I'm Frank Collar. I've got this website. And I'm like, of course, I know about your website. You're like who I want to be. I'm studying everything you do. And he's like, I've got such and such a website. And I noticed you have some charts on your website. And I'd really like to have something like that. Can you tell me how you did those? And this is a moment that changed my life, because I'm like, okay, well, I have this one thing that he doesn't have, and he's asking me to tell him how to do it.
Oh, I know what this feeling is. It's like, he's my competitor. Do I be generous? Do I be transactional? What do I do?
Exactly. And I sat there and looked at that email, I'm like, and at the end of the day, I'm like, It took me 2 days. I had to drive to Best Buy. I had to figure out what software to buy. I had to buy that software. I had to figure out how to do it. It took like me 2 full days, but he's going to be able to do the same damn thing. So why not save him the 2 days of wasted time? And so I just wrote out like a whole tutorial, told him what software, how to do it, what to get. And I sent it to him. And 5 minutes later, I got an email back from him and it said, Jeff, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And if you ever want to come out with a paid version of your newsletter, let me know, because I got this paid version and I've learned I had made all kinds of mistakes. I actually have this long history of offline newsletters and I've got a ton of experience, and just let me know and I can coach you through this entire thing. And I was like,
Whoa.
wow, that was worth sending those instructions to him. And then that's exactly what happened. I said, well, actually, I would love to have a paid newsletter. I'm desperate to make some money. And so he coached me through the whole thing. And actually a year later, he decided to shut down his newsletter and he gave me his business, literally gave me his business. And so that was sort of when I discovered what I call the abundance juice. And that we operate in a world where it might not, that I think giving and building value for people is the way, it's the new economy. It might not work in every instance always, and it might not follow immediately, but the more I give in this business, the more I seem to get. And it's just, and it makes business a lot more enjoyable, a lot more fun when you come at it that way.
Have you ever given to someone, what you're talking about is commonly referred to as the law of reciprocity, right? Which the ironic part of the law of reciprocity is that if we try to invoke it, it usually doesn't work because we're giving with this expectation energy. And even if our emailed words don't change, the feeling is still there. Somehow it's picked up on. We're all smart people. Have you ever given to a place where, or a person or an instance where you're like, they took my idea, they ran with it, there's maybe a business got stolen, or have you ever regretted it?
Well, of course. Well, no. So you put a twist on I thought you were going to ask me if I've ever done it and it hasn't come back. And certainly for that, yeah, there's certainly been times I've given. I don't know that I've ever regretted it. Because it's just, you do it enough and it's going to come back tenfold. Maybe not in every instance. There's certainly, I've been in business for 30 years. There's been deals that have went wrong. Well, my partner went wrong. But just on the whole, the trajectory is it comes back to you in so many ways. And I think also, like I said, it's a better way to move through the world, in my opinion. You're going to end up happier, and you're just going to be more fulfilled that way, in my opinion.
Well, and based on experience and evidence as well, it was,
Yeah.
as I've clicking on all your funnels, it reminds me of Russell Brunson. I heard him speak one time, and he said when he started in the marketing world, he does it a little differently, but he was talking about how he used to collect mailers and just have this pile of mailers and study the colors and study the fonts and study the placement and the locations and all of this. And he obviously is a very effective marketer with what he does, but I feel like you've got something quite different, complementary maybe, but quite different too. Not only are you the kind of giver that gives to other professionals in the marketplace, you're agreeing to be on the show, for example, but also you do it for your customers where yes, you have products and yes, they sell very well, but there's not this feeling of, I can't be successful unless I pay $50,000 or whatever it is. I feel like you do it in such a way, like this book, for example, you cram everything in there and people can run and be successful with the book, even if they never come to a workshop. But we go to the workshops because we're hungry.
Right. Yeah. Russell and I sort of came up, Russell's a lot younger than I am, but we came up about the same time. And I've known Russell since 2005, and he's such an impressive incredibly impressive business person. And
Oh, yeah.
and like, for example, like, I mean, this is just, these threads go back decades now. It's amazing. It's just amazing. We could talk about that a little bit too. It's just the threads over all these years. But my book came out a couple of years before Russell's first book, which I forget which his first one was. But he pinged me because mine was a New York Times, #1 New York Times bestseller. Because why? Because I know how to launch things. And so I know how to,
Read the book.
and yeah, and so he called me up, or I forget what I was. Right now I'm down in Florida visiting my folks, helping my folks out, my very elderly folks, and I was down in Florida actually with them a few years ago when Russell pinged me and just asking me how to launch his book. And so I just walked him through it, and his book did really, really well. I can't remember if it hit the New York Times or not. But yeah, he's an amazing person. He has he has a different community than I do. We all attract, the people we attract end up mirroring who we are, I think. And actually I know that. And so I just have a little bit of different community, a little different way of doing it. And at this point I'm just blathering. I can't remember what the question was. But
Well,
yeah.
it's more like this admiration, the way you approach the paywall. The way you approach the paywall is not a withholding, you have to buy this in order to figure this out. It's your value per page, your
Mhm.
value per minute. You've hacked something there. And I don't know that there's ever been a book published on this or how to do this, but you have not only figured out how to launch, but you have figured out how to take care of people.
I do my best. I'm not perfect. I do my best because, like, we have a rule in our company. We don't have very many rules in my company. And when I say company, I've got a big team now. We're over 30 people on the team. And one of them is we always take. So my main product is a product launch formula. It's an online coaching program. And #1 rule, we always take care of our PLF owners. #2 rule, when we say they're not customers, they're not clients, they're owners. And when we refer to our PLF owners, we always capitalize the O, which can actually be a pain in the ass when you're typing back and forth in Slack, but it's a rule. Because it's the proper noun. We take care of our PLF owners. And I just think it's the way to do business. Marianne, you're teaching people how, like, one of the things you teach people is how to speak from stage and then actually collect the leads. And the power of a lead there's a whole hierarchy of the value of a lead. And at the bottom, in terms of a value on average of a lead, is someone who came in from paid traffic, right? That's basically the bottom. And then the next level up is someone who came in through organic social or maybe from search. And the next level, and there's more than I'm going to say here, but the next level up would be someone who came in from endorsed traffic. In other words, they came from an affiliate partner who said good things about you. And then I think the next level up would be like this, a podcast where we've gotten on, you've said nice things about me, people have heard me, have gotten to know me. That's someone comes into my world now, it's a very, very warm, a very high quality lead. The next, the pinnacle of lead quality, I think it's sort of tied. It's someone who comes in either from speaking on stage or from a book. Because when they've seen you speak on stage, when you're on stage, you're literally on a pedestal, literally. And so you have amazing positioning, and they're like, wow, this person's amazing. And they thought you were amazing enough to go then fill out a form and join your list. That's an incredibly warm lead. And the book's the same. Someone actually saw the book, bought the book, read the book, clicked, pulled up a web browser and went there. And so, there's this whole hierarchy of leads. And then it's like they go from a lead to buying from you. Then that's the next level. If someone's made it through that gauntlet, fall in love with them, fall in love with their journey. And the more you fall in love with them and their journey, and the better you're going to be, the better you're going to take care of them. And the real, in this business, the value to your business accumulates once someone is bought from you, not because of the money, but because of that increased relationship and their propensity to buy from you a second time and a third time and a fourth time.
Well, and they've increased their level of trust in you. They spent
Yep.
$7 here or $15 there, maybe $100 or a 197 here and there, because they trust that whatever their investment is going to be, they're going to get an ROI. They're going to get maybe 10x back, or they're hoping to, at least. So that requires a lot of bandwidth. When you're speaking as a business owner, first of all, I love how you're so detailed even in terms of how you refer to your clients and customers. I agree with you. I've never really liked that word because no one wants to become a client. I don't wake up in the morning and say, I can't wait to become someone's client today. Like, nobody likes that feeling. They don't want to be sold to either. So how do you manage the bandwidth of falling in love with the people who take the time to buy from you, which for you now is substantial in numbers, with what a human being is capable of every day? You're not writing individual love letters to every single one of your clients every day, right? How do you do this?
No, I aspire to, but I don't. I don't. Actually, Marianne, I'm just thinking. So we have just to throw all the cards on the table. Basically, the way my business works is there's the book you can buy for like $10 for the Kindle version, and then beyond that, there's Product Launch Formula, the coaching program, so that's $2,000. And then we have our super high-end coaching program where people get coached every single. We literally do 5 calls a week, coaching calls. People get their material reviewed before they go to launch. All their assets launch. They get a one-on-one debrief after the launch. That's called Launch Club, and that's $14,000. And I literally had this thought like this morning. It's like, for everyone that joins Launch Club, and it's not that many, right? Because it's expensive. It's a big investment. That's why I should say it's not expensive in any way, shape, or form. It's just an incredible investment.
Especially with what your launches are capable of.
Yeah. But I'm like, I should probably just send them an individual voicemail because I probably have the bandwidth to pull that off. So, anyways, to answer your question, I've got a great team now. I didn't initially. In fact, that was one of my mistakes in business. Was it took me way too long to, we were running a $4 million business that was basically myself and my wife and my brother and
Wow.
one customer service person. Yeah, for a $4 million business, we were way understaffed. We were all working too hard. But eventually, I grew up, and now, we have an amazing team, and they help take care of so much. So we actually do get, someone joins Launch Club, they get an individual onboarding call. We have a whole onboarding process. Even someone coming into Product Launch Formula, the experience we give them is absolutely off the charts. But I'm able to, I'm leveraged because I've got a great team, and I understand that not everyone listening to this has got that team, but that's how I do it.
The power of people. So there's a question that I've been mulling around. It's more of a hypothesis, really. So in my former life, I ran a sales team for a multi-million-dollar company, which did a lot for my confidence, having millions of dollars pass through and all of this stuff. But as I ran that sales team, and I watched other industry leaders in the arena doing the same thing, and I watched others automate sales and so forth, I have this hypothesis brewing right now, and maybe you can shed some light on this from your perspective. I think that the days of a sales team of human beings calling these leads, I really think that's coming to an end, or at least going through a massive transformation, because it's contaminated in the market. We have all these tripwires, we have all these lead magnets, everyone's doing it, and that's not a bad thing. I think we should continue to do it because it disperses this value. But as consumers, I feel like we're starting to smell this, where people are saying no to the free thing because they don't want the sales call on the other side. They just want the free thing. What's your take on this? Am I on track? Am I off?
It is an interesting question. Are you more referring to like inbound or like warm inbound where people are booking a call, or more?
Yeah. So let's say we do a podcast, and the guest gives away their free ebook on the podcast with me. So far, I love giving away free stuff. And what I'm starting to notice is that consumers, they're like, I want your book, but I smell a sales pitch coming
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not ready for that. I just want the value that you promised in your book. And people are starting to pull back, and I know I am. I get the, hey, I'm calling from so and so's office, and I'm like, I don't even remember who that is.
Right. Right. Well, I would say that I think markets are becoming increasingly sophisticated. Markets, just this goes back to my stock market days. Markets
Yeah.
move towards efficiency. And I think that marketing moves towards efficiency. Unfortunately, it moves towards cynicism, or at the least, I had one of my mastermind members say, like, when my mom knows she's in a funnel, when my 75-year-old mom knows she's in a funnel, everyone knows they're in a funnel. Because she was talking to him and he said, yep, I just got this free thing, but I know they're going to try to upsell me. And like, when normal civilians are, and for those of you not watching, I used air quotes, when normal civilians use terms like upsells and cross sells and say they're in a funnel, everyone knows they're in a funnel. And so, absolutely, markets are getting more sophisticated, more evolved. And I think, like, when I look at like the evolutions within our launch and our marketing, it's ever more transparent. Like, there has to be a reason why for a phone call, right? And
Yeah.
so we just did a promotion where we have our launch club program. So at $14,000, you're off, and you're usually going to have to get, it obviously has to be a very trusting relationship for someone to invest like that.
Mhm.
And it has to be a super warm. So a lot of times we will drive people to a phone call, but they know full well what the phone call is about. And my team, you've said a lot of nice things about me on this call, which is great. I
I
should
know.
come on like
It sounds
once
like
a
I'm
week.
buttering you up.
I should come on once a week and just have you be like your hype man for me. Uh, you're a hype person for me. But my team reflects me and my values. So any calls that we do are not going to be like hard sells. They aren't going to be like, so how much money do you have on your credit card? Um, they're
No.
always going to be a consultative call. And frankly, we put so much of an investment into people when they join Launch Club. It costs us a fortune to onboard them. We want to make sure it's a good fit. So it's truly a consultative call, but you have to earn that trust, and you have to earn that call. You have to earn their attention, and you have to explain why you're going to have this call, why they should get on this call, why it's a value for them. Like in our launches now, which don't have any calls at all, we drive people straight to an order page. But our launch is completely built on this idea of you have to earn people's attention. And it's really hard in this day and age when there's just this fire hose of content in everywhere. It's on your phone, it's on your computer, it's on your TV, it's everywhere. It's you pull up to get gas at the gas station, and there's a video screen pumping out whatever to you. So to get to someone to show up for a live broadcast or to watch a video, you have to earn their attention. But it's possible. And we did I guess it'd be a webinar, again, air quotes for the people on audio, a couple of weeks ago, and we had 2,000 people register. We had over 1,000 people attend. We taught for 3.5 hours.
Whoa.
And what's a good stick rate for 3.5 hours?
Well, typically your attrition, it is by the time they start to drop off after an hour.
Mhm.
Typically, people you'll lose at least 20% by an hour. I'd be surprised if 50% were there at the end of 3 hours.
Yeah, we had 54% that were over 3 hours. We
Wow.
had the number for 1 hour. We were right around 90% at an hour.
You're outdoing it then.
Yeah, and 1,000 people showing up out of 2,000 registered.
Yeah.
That
Especially for
for
a digital
yeah,
event.
for those playing along at home, I mean, usually these days, 30% used to be the rule of thumb. Now it's 30% you're crushing it. Now it's usually more like 20 to 25% show up. And we had over 50% show up. But we worked really hard to earn the show up and to earn the stick. So it's possible. It's possible. It's not like everything has to be a reel these days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I have some questions. I told a bunch of my friends and my members of my community and my husband. I was like, guess what? Am I getting with Jeff today? Give me all your questions that you want me to ask. So my husband wanted me to ask this because he runs the back end of our business. He runs our CRM and he does the fulfillment for a lot of our members. And he wants to know, because of the efficacy of the material, he wants to know, in the next edition, is there anything that you would add? I'm sure you've been asked this a million times. But it's like reading How to Win Friends and Influence People with the updated version for the digital era.
Right.
It's the same principles interpolated over modern technologies. And even in the last book, which it seems like it just barely came out, you've adapted things for Facebook and for Facebook groups. Is there anything that you left out or that you'd want to add in the next edition?
Boy, I haven't even thought about it. So the version you're holding with the yellow cover is the second edition or the updated edition. And over the first edition, which now came out more than 10 years ago, and we added a new chapter on paid, a new chapter on organic, and I forget what the third new chapter was. So, and I thought this is going to be, I'm just going to write these chapters. I'm going to slam this thing out. It's going to be like a couple of weeks of my time. And of course it was the better part of a year to completely, oh gosh. So I love having written. I love having gotten that book done. The doing of it was hard.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if I'm planning. There's been no talk of a new edition, but if I were to do a new edition, I don't know what I would add. It still feels awfully complete to me right now. There has been the evolutions. Well, this is in that book too. One of the big evolutions in the last few years is, in a launch, there's a pre-launch. There's like 4 real phases, but the two that get the most attention are the pre-launch, where you're just delivering value and you're setting up for the offer, and then the open cart, which is when you actually start taking orders. And it used to be the pre-launch was like where all the energy went, and then the open cart, you just sent a few emails. These days, the open cart has become the star of the show. So that's one of the biggest evolutions. And I'd say it really started happening during COVID times. And now we put as much effort into our open cart as we do into our pre-launch. And so every single day during cart, in our launches, our cart tends to be a 5-day open cart. So from when people can start taking orders till when you close down your offer. And when I say close down the offer, it doesn't mean your product has to come off the market, but something has to change at the end of your launch to encourage people to buy during your launch. In that 5-day frame, we're releasing something every day. We have a reason to mail. We're often doing live broadcasts. It's very choreographed all the way through. And I guess it was always choreographed, but it was never at the level it is now. So that's been one of the, I would say that would, if I were to come out with a new edition, it actually is in this edition, because the first edition didn't even have an open cart chapter, and this one does have an open cart chapter.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the change. But I'd say I'd probably emphasize that even more.
So a cart week book. I hope this is okay, and I hope I have your blessing on this, because I already did it. But in my community, I went through your book and I did the launch sequence, and I documented it, because first of all, I needed it, and I was like, oh, I've got to go back through. And you're right, Cart Week it's multiple emails a day. It's live broadcast. That's what I choose to take from that. I went live on Instagram, and it's crazy, because you built it, and when you can automate your emails and do all of these things, that's really handy. And it took so much trust in the formula, because we had a lot banking on our last launch. We had overhead expenses that we had to cover for our last launch. But I was surprised, but not at the same time, when the day that closed cart happened, we had like 3 sales. and they filled up the last 3 spots, and it was like, holy crap, Jeff was right. This all came to fruition, and we have to have an authentic reason to close the cart and to change the offer or to take the discount away or whatever it is. And I think cart week it reminds me of my show week when I was prepping for a bodybuilding competition. It was 10 months of preparation, and then the week of the competition I'm drinking 2 gallons of water a day, and I'm doing this stuff at the gym, and then it's showtime.
Right.
But the cart week, man, yeah, I would just turn everyone's attention to those chapters in the book
And so
because
Marianne, let me give you a hint about, and you probably already figured this out, but just
please tell me.
for people who are still listening to the podcast, this is the bonus, is you mentioned like a live broadcast during Cart Week. And often we do 1 or 2 live broadcasts, but there's a subtlety here that's really critical. And that's, so let's just say, so for us, a lot of times we'll open cart on Monday and we'll close it on Friday. And that's just what works for us for a number of reasons. And we might do a live broadcast on the closing day, on the Friday closing day. And we might do one, say, on Tuesday. But typically, like if you're going to do a webinar or a live broadcast and it's not during a launch, when do you start telling people about it? It's usually about 2 days in advance. If you're going to do a webinar on Thursday, you start mailing on it Tuesday morning. And you mail Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday you mail a few times right up 15 minutes before to try to put as many people on as possible. Well, so standard rule of thumb, webinar, live broadcast, start promoting 2 full days in advance. During Cart Week, when we do a live broadcast, we don't mention it till 60 minutes before the broadcast.
No kidding. So you're not sending an email saying that there's a live broadcast coming up. It's 60 minutes before you have an announcement.
Yeah, 60 minutes before and then 15 minutes before. And the reason is that during Cart Week, you want people thinking about enrolling, thinking about buying, thinking about joining you. And they're sitting at home plowing along, and if they're still paying attention during Cart Week, they're thinking about buying. And if you say, hey, in 2 days, I'm going to do this live broadcast, you have now said to them essentially, don't buy today. Wait for 2 days to hear what I have to say.
Mm.
You've given people a reason to not buy. This is absolutely critical.
That's so true. And I've seen that happen over and over and over again. And especially when people give a free book away. I tell people to not write a book that's 150 pages. I tell them write a 12-page book for the same reason.
Right.
Because if I get a 150-page book, then people say all the time, I want to read your book before I jump on a phone call with you.
Right. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I had never thought of it.
So during Cart Week, all the messaging is about why now is the time to buy. And it could be delivering value. You could be answering questions. You could add a little bit of content, but it's got to be a very bite size and not lead to additional questions and additional thoughts and actually lead to the enrollment. But you have to be real careful. Live broadcasts during Cart Week can be good, but they're dangerous. They treat them with care and think about them. Don't say, hey, we got this amazing thing coming up in 2 days, because people are just looking for a reason to not buy. They're looking for a reason to procrastinate on that decision. So don't give them any extra reasons.
That's fascinating. What I found, I did a live broadcast announcement, and I didn't have very many people show to my live. What I did find, though, and I want your perspective on this, is that I did a live broadcast for buyers, and I said, okay, so mine was for an event, and I wanted to give the buyers some kind of prep for the event. And I said, okay, we're meeting with all of the speakers on this day. You have to be enrolled to be invited to this meeting, because it's more of a fulfillment than a sales thing. Am I doing that wrong?
Oh, no, that's fine. Once they're on board with you, that's fine. And like one of the things we'll do often right at the end of cart, so yes, that's 100% fine. That's over and aboard. I mean, it's onboarding, and that onboarding is incredible. That's the post-launch sequence, which is incredibly powerful. But like one of the things we'll do is like late in cart. It might even be on closing day. we'll do a live training and we'll invite all the people that have already joined. And it's almost like an onboarding call for them, but we'll also sometimes invite the people who haven't bought yet.
Oh,
And
okay.
then all of a sudden you're on this call that's got great energy because all these people are pumped up because they joined and they're ready to charge forward. And if you've got an open chat role and those people are just like getting all jacked up about what's coming for them in their future and having this great communal moment, then it can be super powerful to have the people that haven't thrown their hat over the fence, haven't joined yet, to see
Mm.
that. So that can be really powerful.
Oh, I might try that next time. Okay, I have one final question. This one is from my friend Heather. And she texted me this morning. She's like, "Are you meeting with Jeff today?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's just barely, and I know that you work with a lot of people in this situation where they've just left a W-2 or most likely working for somebody else. And that ended for her less than a week ago. And she saw it coming. And so she's been trying to build up her launch. And I said, "You've got to get this book, of course, and get ready to do everything." But she doesn't have a list yet. What she does have is I wouldn't even call it a social following, because if you went on Instagram, you wouldn't see the numbers in the follower section, but she has loyalty from people who love her. Super fans is what you could call them. And she's hasn't built the curriculum yet. She's got the ebook, but she might be changing it. But she's I don't want to use the word desperate because it brings this negative energy to it, but she's got urgency. Now she's about to enter her first month without that check coming in from the W-2. What advice would you give someone like Heather in that situation?
Well, the fact that she has people that are quote unquote super fans is amazing because those are the folks that can be your champions. Way back at the beginning of this call, we were talking about I went to a marketing conference and got to meet a few people, but really I met someone who became a super champion. He heard my story, we resonated, and he just started telling people about me. So that we all have assets that we forget about.
Hmm.
And having even if it's just 5 people, even if it's one person who thinks you're amazing, then I would reach out to them and say, "Hey, you know what? Crazy thing is my job just went away and I'm thinking about striking out on my own. And I just love your advice. We've talked about such and such before. If you were me, what would what would you do? What, like, knowing me well and knowing my skills, what would you do?" And I'd be reaching out to every one of those people that you're super connected with. Like, odds are 1 or 2 of them will be like, "Hey, how about if I pay you and you can coach me?" And that's where we're
Wow.
going back to getting scrappy and getting those first success stories under your belt. And the critical thing about that is not just, circling way back to how we started with the first question was, if you don't have case studies, what do you do? Well, the case studies are really great. Testimonials are really great. But the person that they're the greatest for is you.
Hmm.
Because at the start, we all have a certain level of disbelief in ourselves. And so I would get on the phone or text them, say, "Hey, can we talk?" And just literally, "You know what? My job just ended. I'm thinking about striking on my own. I've always wanted to, but now it's time. And if you were me, what would you do? What advice would you give me?" People
I
love,
love that approach.
yeah.
And the reason I love it is you're asking for advice, not asking for a client. "Hey, I'm striking on my own. Do you want to sign up?" But it's if you were me, what would you do? And it really creates this collaborative team energy, and it really helps you find out who your champions are, and energetically, naturally gives them an invitation to champion you, because now they're going to be thinking about you when the opportunity arises in rooms you're not in.
Yeah.
That's elegant, Jeff. I love that.
And just know that, like, at one champion, this is like going back to the earlier question where you asked me about where did I come to this, like, I forget how you put it, the way I like to give and give and give first. And it's just, we've seen it over and over. It goes back to that abundance. That one champion is worth 1,000 clients. And so rather than like going for the jugular and say, "Hey, I need money. Will you pay me money?" Say, what would you do if you were me? And finding those champions, and they might become clients, but look for the champions first.
That's incredible. Jeff, I wish we could go for another hour on this. And I just have to say thank you for spending this time with me. And by extension, thank you for sharing your time with the people that'll be listening. If there's any last piece of advice that you would offer entrepreneurs who are taking the stage, what would you say to them? If, and I like to add this caveat, if you didn't have the chance to be on the planet tomorrow, God forbid, knock on wood, what would be the final message?
Wow. I think if I was ever on the Tim Ferriss podcast and he asked me what would my billboard be, I would say in New York Times or in Times Square, I think it would just it would literally say be kind. I think there is just it's not only a good business, but it's a great way to be. And so for the people that are just getting on stage, and maybe it's the first time getting on stage, just revel in the fact that you have that opportunity to be on stage and to change people's lives. And Marianne, when I started out, like I said, I was a stay-at-home dad, one income family. We were desperate, and I just wanted to make some money. That I was desperate to make some money, but over the years, my circumstances have changed for me, and I get to just show up and serve. And yes, we have a great business. We're in business to make money. We make a lot of money. It's fantastic, but I'm in this joyous place of being able to serve. And if you get to be on stage, you're in that joyous place, and just show up and serve.
I love that. I think you couldn't have said it any better. In fact, there's a scripture that flashed my mind, and I don't know what book it's from, but it says, "Oh, be kind. What can I say more?" So that sounds like a perfect period on the end of that sentence. Friends, thank you for being here with us on the Marianne Hickman Show. And thank you, Jeff, for being here and sharing your expertise. Thank you for all that you put out there. And thank you for the heart and soul that you bring to everything that you do. And by extension, please tell your team thank you, because I know that we can't do this alone.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Awesome. And we will see you, friends. I'll be looking for you in the next episode.
Hey, what's up? Marianne Hickman here. Hey, listen, I hope you enjoyed that episode. We have some pretty amazing speakers on my podcast, and of course, more to come. If this is something that you enjoyed, guys, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. You guys know what to do. I love your comments, and I respond to every single one of them personally, not a bot or an agency. So if this is something you're enjoying, tell me about it. Tell me your gold nuggets. I want to hear from you. But here's the most important thing I want you to laser in on. I told you about the podcast database. You've probably seen me post about it all over social media. I want to make sure that you get it. So here's what I want you to do. Go to mariannehickman.com/database. Once you put all of your information in there, I'm going to send you the document. You request access to it. Boom, it's unlocked. Once you're in there, my rule of thumb is to apply to 10 podcasts a month. It's very digestible. It's very easy to do. And the database gets updated twice a week. So I want you constantly checking back in there for the next podcast that fits your audience. Thank you for being here. Much love to you, and we'll see you in the next episode.